December 1st, Ontario real estate law is changing. Finally, it's happening. Yes, my friends. So for realtors, today, November 30th, when I'm recording this, although we've had a tremendous amount of information come out about the new law, there's also a lot of, perhaps confused people out there, not only from the client side, or maybe if you're a client, buyer, or seller, you don't even know about this, and that's quite all right. But for the realtors that transact every day and work with clients, this is something they need to get familiar with incredibly fast. And in fact, quite frankly, we as the industry are still waiting on some clarity and some documentation to come from OREA, Ontario Real Estate Association, so that we can implement the new law December 1st and thereon. The new law is called TRESA, and the biggest piece of the call it puzzle or working together, when you and I get to work together going forward, there is a new document. In fact, there's a few new documents, but that's okay. We're going to focus on one today. This is that public service announcement, but we'll keep it very, very brief and light. And when we go into the document, if you were, for instance, my client, we'd go through it very, very detailed, so you would have a clear understanding of it. But we can't do that. Sorry, let me rephrase this. We can't become realtor and client partnership if you don't as the client, read this document and have a clear understanding of it. So we're going to do a very high level of it so you can see what it is. And it is simply called Working with the Real Estate Agent, Things You Need to Know, the RECO Information Guide. Every realtor in Ontario, when you go to work with that individual, will be sending you this guide and we'll be sitting down with you and going through it. And your job as the client have to read this document and sign off on this document. That's the easiest way, the way that I can say it. So let me share my screen. We'll go through it at a very high level here. Here it is right here, right off the RECO website. And in fact, November 30th, you can still see this is the advanced copy, not for use. So we will not be signing this particular document, but the contents will remain most likely all the same. And I'm just going to scroll through it a little bit here. In fact, there's 12 pages, the 12th page being a signing page. And of course, just like any document, it gives you the quick highlights, what we're doing in here, working with a real estate agent. So you might recall when you go and buy a property, one of the documents in Ontario that you have to sign is a BRA, or a buyer representation agreement. Well, now we have this in its replacement, and this is what that document essentially covers, and then a little bit more detailed, if you will. And we'll go through some of these things. So working with a real estate agent, in these first two columns, as a buyer or as a seller, it tells you what a realtor obviously can do and so forth. So none of this will become, this shouldn't be of any surprise. We won't go through all the points in here. You can get this document and review it for yourself. You will also benefit from the duties the brokerage and the agent owe you to as a client. Of course, if you're working with me, and I'm sure many, 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 many other realtors out there, your undivided loyalty, or the undivided loyalty, disclosure, we must tell you everything we know about the transaction or the client relationship, could have an impact on the decisions that you make. Well, obviously, if you're looking at buying a home and that home seems perfect and it's great, yet I know for a fact that there was a really the only example I can think of was a terrible crime committed at that property, and I don't tell you that information. Well, obviously that information needs to be disclosed, or things along of that nature that would certainly impact your decision of buying the property. Like another example, maybe we won't go to that. Maybe I know right next door or in the backyard, a 30-unit tower is going up, and I don't tell you that. That's the type of things that we're talking about here. Confidentiality, well, of course, that shouldn't change as well. And avoid any conflicts or interests, well, that shouldn't change as well. Those are all things, especially if you're working with me, and like I said, many, many others, we always look at that and so forth. Your responsibilities as a client. You have responsibilities, of course, and you can read what these are. But the most important one here is, I think number 3 actually, is understand the terms of your agreement with the brokerage and so forth. So the agreement is, so if it's a listing agreement, that type of thing. So that doesn't change, but we want to make sure, the industry wants to make sure, and the government wants to make sure that you and clients of the real estate industry have a clear understanding of what you are signing and getting into contract with. That's the important piece here. Of course, it goes on to say, pay the fees that you've agreed upon on page 7, which we'll get to even if the agreement to buy or sell later falls through because of the default or neglect. Well, that's not new. That's the same as it was on November 30th, and going into our new real estate law. That's always been the same as well. This is something that is new. We'll do more videos and get more. I'll provide more information, more clarity around this. Knowing the risks of representing yourself. Yes. Going forward, the real estate, the Trust Act will make it, let's say, easier. I don't know if easier is the right word, but make it more known perhaps that buyers can represent themselves in transactions. And we call that SRP, in fact. And obviously it goes through what the risks are for that. And the real estate agent is working for another party in this transaction. What does that mean? Well, if you as an end user call the listing agent on a property, and you tell that agent that you will be representing yourselves, that agent will only work for the seller. And in fact, they will not provide you, and they should not provide you with any insights or ideas or negotiation ideas or anything like that. That would obviously go against a self-represented buyer in fact. So make sure you have a clear understanding what that is, and we'll have much more detailed content around that. You can see here what the agent cannot do: provide you with any services or opinions or advice, do anything that would encourage you to rely on their knowledge, the realtor's knowledge, skill or judgment, or encourage you to represent yourself, or discourage you working with another real estate agent or brokerage. Any assistant over here, any assistance the agent offers you is a service to their client, not you. So you could say a service to the seller in most cases, and is in the best interest of the client, not you, and is to help their client sell or buy a property. And I used selling here as an example. Of course, you have the right to change your mind. Should you not want to represent yourself, you can certainly have a realtor, any realtor, providing they meet your standards, represent you, of course. Signing a contract with a real estate brokerage, well, we briefly touched on that, and that really hasn't changed. So forth, you always sign a contract with a brokerage in order to represent you in a sale or in selling a home or purchasing a home. So that remains all the same. Just perhaps some more in-depth clarity around that, and the type of services that is being offered, and everything that goes along with that. Of course, the payment and the terms of that payment, typically, for the most part, we as realtors will charge a percentage of the sale of home. And that is how the remuneration, I can't even say that word. That is how brokerages and realtors get paid, is the commission on the sale of a home. And that commission, perhaps we should do a video on this. It can be a percentage or a fixed amount. So there you have it, my friends. That's nothing new. In fact, we can do that in our previous act. Of course, we can do that in the new act as well. Multiple representation and changing the designated representation. That's what that agreement will have in it. So multiple representation. Let's talk about that. In fact, we go down to here. There's two things: brokerage representation. So that's where you have, in this case, brokers represents both the buyer and a seller in the same transaction. So perhaps me at Keller Williams Realty Centers, I have a listing, and one of my colleagues at my same brokerage has a buyer. We would classify that as brokerage or multiple representation. In this instance, it's brokerage representation. Designated representation, you can see here, represents Multiple representation exists when the same real estate agent, so Gary in this instance, is designated representative for both the buyer and the seller in a transaction. So, the slang term in a sense is that double end. I have the seller and the buyer in the same transaction. It's the same realtor, me, operating on that, or two or more competing buyers, so interested in the same property. There has been occasions where I've been very, very clear on. I can remember many years ago, I represented multiple buyers, different contracts for a property, and I provided them with a customer service. That's something that is going by the wayside agreement, where they provided me with their number and any conditions they wanted in the offer, and I submitted that, and everyone knew that I was submitting more than one offer, and in fact, I submitted 4 or 5. I can't remember the exact number, and I updated everybody along the way as I submitted an additional offer, and of course, we didn't share any information there. What to expect before you agree to multiple representation. So we have to, as a brokerage, we're required to provide you with a written disclosure that explains the following: how brokerage's duties or designated representative's duties will change, if there's any differences in the services that one will receive, and then change how much will you end up paying the brokerage, and that would typically all remain the same, if I can think off the top of my head here. Can you refuse multiple representation? Well, yeah, you can go through with that information here as well. And moving on, a note about the content of other offers. What does that mean, Gary? Well, we're entering into a new realm. In fact, it's been around for just a short amount of time, but moving forward, we might hear more of it, especially in multiple offers, obviously in multiple offer situations where the seller now has the right or the opportunity to include the information that is on the other offers, and that's providing that. As an industry, we wanted to be able to provide more transparency in when we have multiple offers, and you can see here what the seller is able to provide. And if you are a buyer, you can decide whether or not you want to participate in an offer situation like that. So whether you want to participate in a process where the content of your offer might be shared with other buyers, I'm going to sum that up in just a moment. Your agent can tell you the steps to take to avoid having the content of your offer. So we can put in some stipulations. In fact, be aware that the seller can make decision to share the content it offers at any time. You may not know that in advance, which is interesting. We're going to do another video on this whole page right here. So why is this something like this come into play? Perhaps you have 3 offers on the table as a seller, and you want to, as a selling agent and as a seller, you want to do your best in order to get the most money that you can, or the best transaction that you can for your property. And I might, as a listing agent, take the best number, or the highest number, I should say, the highest deposit, and maybe the most favorable closing date. And you would provide that information to these 3 buying agents and the buyers. No, do I not disclose names or the contents of the individuals at all. It is just primarily the contents, excluding the names is the easiest way to explain that. But we'll do more videos around that. Of course, how to make a complaint. So this is a reminder right here and there. Contact RECO, and there's some online information, online submission forms where you can make a complaint. But I would always start, as it says right here, start with the brokers and the broker of record first, the broker of record of that agent, and then you can follow the next steps and contact RECO. And like I said, there's an online submission form. And at the very end of all this, when you and I sit down and we go through this, you sign off on this, and that will tell the RECOs of the world that the agent and the client sat down and they understood this and they signed off on it. So that, my friends, is a very, very high level view. 15 minutes, in fact, this video will be of what we're doing with the new information coming out of Tressa, and of course, the RECO information guide that Every realtor has to provide to their clients and go over that in detail with their client. The client there at that point is encouraged to sign off on it. And I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to sign off on it. And they cannot, a realtor cannot actually show you a property without going over this information. So there you have it, my friends. A video today about the new Trust Act and the new information guide that's coming up from RECO. Hope you have an amazing day. See everybody in the next video. Bye for now.